It's a calculated risk. He knows what he's doing. Every Chelsea fan was looking at that pitch going, bring Palmer on.
Jackson can play with NKUNKU, and I do want to see that at some point in the season.
He is the best player in the Premier League right now.
He is the most impressive player I've seen since Hazard.
We've discovered a gem that nobody expected. When we signed him last summer, nobody thought he was going to be the man that we're talking about next year.
The reality is, he's outrageously good.
I'm seeing a player that is developing at a rapid level and is only going to reach the highest of the heights. And when you talk about hyping players, I will hype Nicolas Jackson because I've seen the truth.
The recruitment so far, I'm with you, no one's criticising Chelsea anymore.
If we don't beat them at Old Trafford this Sunday, we never will again.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Buzaglo, and once again, I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and broadcaster and lifelong Chelsea fan Kwkeu Afari. Now we've had two games against Newcastle since we were last here. We beat them in the Premier League and then, of course, lost to them in the Carabao Cup. So just first of all, guys, Kwkeu first, how are you feeling about sort of where we are now after those two games?
Delighted after the league victory. I like those hard-fought victories. Some of my favourite games this season. The Bournemouth game, despite the fact that we didn't play very well, we got the win in that one. And the Newcastle game, we showed some resilience, and I think that's what this Chelsea side has missed. We've got quality, undoubted quality. You have to really congratulate the recruitment team in terms of spotting that talent and bringing them in. But we showed some resiliency against the Newcastle side that are dangerous. And Enzo, our manager, pointed out that they are very, very effective on the counter-attack, and we had to be aware of that. But I was really impressed by the league game. The League Cup game, a game to forget, really. Away from home, in the northeast, rotated side. I think we could get over that. It's just disappointing to lose a match.
It annoyed me a little bit, Jason.
I'm annoyed. I hear you, I'm annoyed. Every Chelsea fan waking up this morning would have been annoyed about what happened. But the reality is, it was a calculated risk that didn't pay off. I saw the Carabao Cup Sheffield Wednesday making decisions on the pitch, a weakened team. This is what this competition is. You want to go through. When I looked at both sides on paper, and if you look up now, they had a stronger, more experienced team than we did.
Yeah.
And we come up short. There were some performances there that you think, right, now you know why you're in that team, playing in the B team, if you like, the Carabao Cup or Conference or FA Cup, depending we get, compared to the Premier League. There's a number of performances like that. I
mean, defensively. Well, we didn't help ourselves, really, did we? Especially that first sort of 20, 25 minutes. We were all over the shop. Yeah,
it's been a theme this season, and I think Chelsea fans thought that would be rectified by bringing in Jorgensen, and it just shows you that Enzo Maresca's asked them to do something that's very specific and not too familiar to these players, and they're trying to not unlearn what Poch taught them, but it's a completely different system. And Jace talked about it last week in terms of you're asking technically the worst player on the pitch to do something that isn't too comfortable for them. And we saw how Newcastle scored their goals through Chelsea errors. And the thing that gives me hope is that you can rectify those errors. Those things are correctable. When you look at this Chelsea team, you know clearly where we need to improve. I was annoyed by the loss. I was annoyed by it because you want to try and win every game you're in. But if you asked me before those two Newcastle games, which game would you prefer to win? Obviously, I'm picking the league game, and we did that. And with the Man United game on the horizon, I can understand why changes were made and brought in the B-side.
JOAO FELIX played, and he's one of these players, Kwkeu, that we said he's like the worst best player. I mean, Jason, when you watched him yesterday, he sort of, to me, when I watched JOAO FELIX, very aesthetically pleasing, very easy on the eye. We saw that when he came on loan. Yeah. But it feels like when he gets into the positions where we really need him to step up, score a goal or two, he doesn't seem to do the job.
You're absolutely right. He kind of flatters to deceive at times, but this is the problem you've got when you have two teams. So the players in there, we're going to talk about NKUNKU in a second as well. FELIX is one of those. Mudryk is in that half, kind of in that balance, somewhere between the A team and the B team. When you get into that team, the A team, you've got better players. Yeah. You've got Cole Palmer playing balls in. When you're in the B team, you're playing with players that aren't as good as the A team. So therefore, the responsibility then falls more on your shoulders. And the problem that FELIX has got, he is one of those players, he's in between. He's in the A team, he's in the B team, but he's in that mid area.
Wants to get out, doesn't he?
Wants to get out. But there's a number of players that are in that position. So if we're going to put Neto in there, because Neto's gone from that B team into the first team, it feels like right now. But the problem you've got is when you get in that team, the B team, we saw last night, we're not as good. And when you're not as good, that responsibility goes to you. He can kind of get lost a little bit if he plays in the A team. There are better players around him, and that responsibility is not so much on his shoulders. But it's a real tough one. Great having two teams, but the difference is quite remarkable when you see the pair.
And when you talk about him being in between the teams, he's also in between positions as well, because I feel like the biggest issue for JOAO FELIX throughout the whole of his career, and again, he's an incredibly talented footballer, is that where's his best position? And I find that when him and NKUNKU play together, they kind of occupy the same spaces, and KUNKU wants to drop deep, and that means that JOAO FELIX has to go in behind, but he also wants to play in that hole as well. So I feel like they sometimes struggle to play with each other. Again, both very, very talented players, but with JOAO FELIX, it was very disappointing to see him miss that chance, because we would have been back in that game, and with 10 minutes to go, the strength and depth we got on the bench, Enzo Maresca might think, go for it, because it's a penalty shootout anyway. Let's go for it for the next 5 to 6 minutes. But he didn't do that. He didn't take his chance. And unfortunately, because we have such a competitive squad, that might mean that it takes him a little bit more time to get into the A team. So it was disappointing to see him miss that chance. But hopefully he comes good, because we've seen that there's quality there.
I mean, Enzo Maresca, Jace, has largely got things right. I think, we spoke last week about, how he's exceeded expectations and no one expected Chelsea to be where they are. In terms of this A team, B team, do you think it's too rigid? He needs to maybe have a little bit more flexibility with the players he maybe brings into the A team or players he brings into the B team. Like, example, yesterday, I know a lot of people with Manchester United on the weekend are saying, don't bring Cole Palmer on. But with 10 minutes to go or 20 minutes to go when you're 2-0 down, could you bring Cole Palmer on?
Of course you could. Of course, he didn't warm up. I think if the game was tighter, I think if we got that goal that Kwkeu just spoke about, with Felix goes through, pokes it past Pope, I think he might consider it. But at 2-0, it's a calculated risk. He knows what he's doing. Every Chelsea fan was looking at that pitch going, bring Palmer on. Casado wasn't even on the bench. You want to talk about players. You've got Reece James, who can't play 2 games in a week. Lavia can't play 2 games in a game. Jackson, you could totally different. They went a stronger team. They needed that victory last night more than we did. And that's not belittling the competition. The truth is, we beat Newcastle, got the 3 points. Kwkeu made the point. Take 3 points at the weekend over last night. But of course you can bring Palmer on, but they didn't bring Haaland on last night either. Man City, when they're 2-1, it's a competition you want to win. The reality is, winning that cup does not keep you in a job. Exhibit A, Ten Hag. He's won the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. He got sacked. Why? Because the league form. The league is the most important thing. And as fans, we want to win everything. But the reality is, when you're a manager of a club like Chelsea, you've also got to give these players minutes.
Yeah.
You've also got to play Felix. You've got to play Mudryk. You've got to play NKUNKU.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you asked every Chelsea fan at the start of the season, what would they have rather done, finish in the top 4 or win the Carabao Cup? Being Chelsea and having won everything there is to win in football, people probably would have said, given where we are as a club, top 4 this season is the absolute priority. But is it a little bit frustrating just because I feel like, personally, that's a real opportunity? I think it's a real opportunity to win a trophy there. Man City, we know, don't take it seriously. Pep Guardiola already said, I'm going to play my kids. I mean, City's kids are ridiculous. But anyway, I just feel like with the teams left in it, I feel like it was an opportunity potentially missed. I know Liverpool are in it, and obviously we've lost, however many finals to Liverpool over the last few years. But I don't know. That's why I'm annoyed, because I feel like it's a bit.
We all feel. But if I told you now we win on Sunday,
that makes great. Yeah,
we win
great.
on Sunday. No, but that's it.
That is how I feel. Yeah.
If I told you guys now, we win on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? You'll forget about what happened against Newcastle away. Honestly, you will.
100%. And I feel like this is a Chelsea side that we're growing, right? We're not ready to compete on all fronts. And it's very rigid right now in terms of an A team and a B team. You see other teams, maybe it's more in flux. You mix the A team and the B team. But to be honest, now I've slept on it, I'm okay. I'm okay with going out of it, because that's just what happened. That's a very good Newcastle side. That's a Newcastle side that last year was playing Champions League football. That's a Newcastle side that, despite their poor start to the season, they've still got points on the board. Isak started for them. So the fact that we lost that game, I suppose the manner of the defeat, the way that we played, didn't really show much initiative. That's the problem for us.
That's a little bit. That's the tough one to get over. We kind of went out with a little bit of a whimper. We're better than what we saw, aren't we? We're better than what we saw.
I mean, one of the decisions that Chelsea fans, I think, were a little bit surprised about was obviously sticking with this A team, B team. We know this, but the decision to play Dewsbury Hall. out on the right was an interesting one yesterday, Kwkeu.
It was an interesting one, but I understand it to an extent. I do understand it to an extent. You've got to give him minutes. He's got to play minutes. That's not his best position, but what would you have rather seen then, Olivia?
I just feel like, in my head, I think Madueke is a certain player that can play. I understand Reece James can't play. Like you said, Jace, Reece James, Fofana, Lavia, Caicedo, those are the players that can't play 2 games in a week. Madueke very rarely gets injured. He can play 2 games in a week. Play him on the right and play. If you want to give Dewsbury Hall minutes, play him in his position, which is central midfield. That's what I would rather see. I would rather see a little bit more flexibility between Team A and Team B, whilst also then playing players in their right positions.
I think we might see that the further we go in competitions. For example, if we got to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup or in the Conference League, if we get to the quarters and semi, I think you'll see it. But right now, it isn't a priority. I think also he had a problem. Sancho was ill. I think that Dewsbury Hall was put out there. It's needs must. I want to keep Madueke fit. I don't want him to play. I know that face again. I know.
It just feels so because I feel like there is plenty of opportunity to merge the two. But
I think Sancho not being fit.
Yeah.
I think that caused a problem for him. I think the pair of them would have played. I think you'd have seen Dewsbury Hall, if he was going to play, probably play where maybe Vega started last night. Maybe.
I agree with that because Sancho can't play on the weekend because it's against Manchester United, his parent club. So he would have definitely played. And I feel like Dewsbury Hall's been played out of position, but he needs to get minutes, right? Maresca's convinced him to join Chelsea from Leicester. He's barely really played for us this season. He needs to get minutes. I know it's not his right position, but we've got so many players that we need to keep happy. And what we do always give credit to Maresca for is keeping this big squad happy. There's no real noise about discontent. So he had to do that decision or had to make that decision, and I haven't got the biggest issue with it.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that, yeah.
Okay, you two against me. Whatever. You mentioned Christopher Nkunku. It is a difficult one because when he came on against Newcastle, couldn't really get going. And when he was brought on the game before that against Liverpool, he was brought out on the left. We all know that's not his best position. Is there any way, Jason, that Christopher Nkunku can worm his way into Team A?
Not right now. No, I can't make a case for it. And the problem that he's got, when you mentioned there that he comes off the bench, he's coming off the bench where the game is not won. It's not almost like we need to. So against Newcastle at the weekend, it was a game I wouldn't say we were hanging on, but it felt a little bit like we were.
At times,
but it wasn't like Sanchez was getting bombarded, but they were looking for that, and it felt like the next goal in the game wasn't going to come from us. So he's coming into games where it's not ideal for someone attacker to come onto. What you want to see is him start a game when he's got Palmer behind him, Caicedo behind him, Reece James in there, where it's Chelsea's best 11. We haven't seen that.
Are we going to see that?
I don't think... But then, who are you going to drop? Because you can't drop Jackson right now, right? And I feel for Nkunku, but the reality is there isn't an opportunity for him yet. It's not there. It will come. There will be a moment where... I mean, Jackson's yellow cards, right? They stack them. So there will be a suspension, you would have thought at some stage, maybe a little niggle. That's when he'll take his chance because they're different players. So last night, you made the point there about Felix coming, he wants that same space as Nkunku. Jackson's different. Jackson stretches defences, which allows more space for the likes of Palmer and Felix. So they're two very different type of players wanting the same position. But right now, I don't think that you can make a case for him starting. You can't.
Nicolas Jackson is playing incredible football right now. It's not just his goals, it's his build-up play and his connection with the other players in the team. I really like Christopher Nkunku. And remember pre-season last year where Nkunku and Jackson were playing together and
Jackson was on the left.
Jackson was on the left. Yeah, and but the thing is, Enzo's come out and said that he doesn't see Jackson as a wide man, he only sees him as a striker. But they can play together, so we will see it. You are right. Where we're in a really good position is that we've got such a good squad. Injuries happen in the Premier League, right? They're going to happen to other sides. And when we do get hit with those injuries, which inevitably does happen, we will be able to find solutions because we've got so many good players. And Jackson can play with Nkunku, and I do want to see that at some point in the season. I do think we will.
I remember that pre-season and us all getting really excited, and then Nkunku got injured, didn't he?
And Mudryk.
Mudryk
scored well in pre-season as well.
I'm still on the Mudryk hype, guys. Okay. I'm still very on.
Hanging in there, yeah.
I'm hanging in there, okay. Only because if that run and that ball against Forest, that was his moment that Christopher Nkunku should have put away. Yeah. Should have put away. But I just can't describe it. And I know he's in the B team and he's probably going to stay in the B team. But there's just something about him that I love. Now, someone else that was in the B team, perhaps quite surprisingly, back from suspension, Jace, is Marc Cucurella. Are you surprised? Well, OK, first question. Do you think he's now in the B team?
No, I don't. I don't think that at all. I was surprised he didn't start at Newcastle at the weekend. So James has got to start, right? He has to start.
Yeah.
Now, what you've got the two James and Cucurella, you can play both of those coming inside, but you can't do that because inverted fullbacks, you have one. So then
that'd be quite funny, actually. Play both of them, see what happens.
It'd be too crowded in there.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how he lines up with James on the right, if he's going to start on the right, and Cucurella. Only one can come inside. So if James comes inside, you're now asking Cucurella to play left of a 3, right?
Yeah. That
feels a little bit uncomfortable with me. What I would rather see is Cucurella come inside and James, who I think can play centre-half anyway, and he has done, then that back 3 will be James, Fofana and Kwkeu, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen Cucurella play left of a 3 against Aston Villa. We won 2-0. Mount scored both goals. He was terrible that day. No, he was. It's not his game. He's not a natural centre-half. Yeah. And that's what he'll be asked to do. So it'll be interesting to see how he squares that circle. Can you play Cucurella and James in the same team? Because for me, you can only have Cucurella coming inside. If James does, you're asking Cucurella to do a very different job. Yeah.
This was one thing that I couldn't get my head around. Like, when I was watching the game at Stamford Bridge against Newcastle, I got there a little bit late and I hadn't even comprehended that Reece James was playing on the left.
Left back, I know.
What are we doing, Kwkeu? Like, what is Enzo Maresca's thinking behind playing arguably, I know he's coming back from full fitness, but on his day, one of the best right-backs in the league. Why are we accommodating other players for Reece James? That makes no sense to me.
You said it yourself. It's because he's coming back from injury. And the Reece James that we saw in the 19-20 season, 2021 season, bombing on and just being one of the best right-backs in the world. But you can see he's playing within himself a little bit going forward. Defensively, he's going to still have to make those runs because he needs to get back into position. And we saw that great defensive header against Newcastle. But going forward, I do feel like he's playing within himself at the moment. Yeah. We will see Reece James come up to full speed and maybe see that bombing right-back that we saw in his best years. But I just don't think that Reece James, at this current stage of his fitness, is capable of doing that in a big game. I don't think you're going to see that Reece James bombing on until he's fully fit and feels good within himself.
Which is obviously fine and understandable given his issues, but surely you just want Reece James playing at right back. This is what I don't get. Like, surely when you've got Reece James at right back, who now can play 90 minutes because he played 90 minutes against Newcastle. I love Gusto. Now, I had an argument with one of the guys in the stands behind me. He was saying, Reece James isn't this, Reece James isn't that. I said, on his day, he's one of the best in the world, not even just Premier League. And I know, obviously, we haven't seen that Reece James for a while, and it might be a while until we see that Reece James again. But to me, when I'm looking at that team, if Reece James is fit, he plays right back.
Well, what does that right back look like to you? Because the right back now in the modern game, it's a right back when you look at the team sheet, but positionally wise, tactically wise, what does that look like? He's not, and I said to you last week, Liv, you said, I can't wait. I said, I'm not sure you're going to see him bomb up and down because we've got the width from Madueke. You're going to have the width from Neto. You're going to have Michi. That's how you're not going to... Under Maresca's system now, I don't think you're going to see... And that's fine. I ain't got a problem with that because as long as you've got the width, yes, Reece James, up and down. In a different system, we saw that under Tuchel. That Reece James is a different-looking player. I know, he's done it again.
So now you're basically just thinking Gusto at right back and then he either goes with Cucurella or Reece James at left back.
Well, it's hard to tell because we've not yet seen enough of Reece James. Reece has only played 2 games. Yeah. He's only played 2. So in 6 weeks' time, we will have a clearer picture of what Gusto, Cucurella and Reece James look like in this system. Right now, we're kind of guessing a little bit.
Do you think the game against Man United will be... I know Jason said 6 weeks, but do you think that will be... that is a massive game. And I think part of the reason why those players didn't come on against Newcastle in the League Cup was because we have that game against Man United. Do you think whoever he plays at right and left back in that game is who potentially he favours in those positions going forward?
Well, that's the only position really in the team that we are not 100% sure on. We know who the centre mids are going to be. We kind of have a clear idea who the centre backs are going to be. The forwards are the forwards. and I think Neto's now broken into that A team. But the fullback positions is kind of in flux, partly because of injury and partly because of systems and the opposition we play against. It's horses for courses. I do expect it to be Reece James on the left and Gusto on the right. And I know it sounds abnormal and I know it doesn't look right and I know we want to see Reece James bombing on the right-hand side, but that's just not how we play at the moment. We might see it later on in the system or in the season, but I do think Reece James is going to play a similar role to what he did against Liverpool or against Newcastle, sorry. And that's just what it's going to be, unfortunately.
Just one other thing on that. I don't think anyone expected Gordon not to start at the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to factor in that. You pick a player, obviously try and get the best out of your team, but also you're looking at what they've got. What's the best way to manage Gordon? Gordon surprised me last night when he started on the right. So there you go.
Yeah.
I just don't like it. I just don't like it. But however, one thing I do like is Cole Palmer. I call him Cold Palmer. Cole Palmer. I'm just going to start this by saying he is the best player in the Premier League right now. Right, come on then. Let's have it off.
Come on, Kwkeu.
Come on.
Come on.
You know what?
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Spit it out.
I don't want anybody to misrepresent my position. I love Cole Palmer. I think he's the most talented attacking player that Chelsea have had since Eden Hazard.
Yeah.
I think in terms of best players in the Premier League, he's up there. But I also want to enjoy the journey. And I want to enjoy him getting there. As soon as Eden Hazard touched the football pitch for Chelsea in the 12-13 season, I looked at him and said, you're the best player in the league. But let's bear in mind, in the league at that time, you still had the Robin Van Persie, you still had the Luis Suarez. I was remiss at that time to call him the best player in the league, even though I believe so in my heart. Outwardly, you're not going to get me to say Cole Palmer's best player in the Premier League right now, when in a game against Liverpool, when they also had another one of the best players in the league, in Mo Salah, who had a quiet game, he still got a goal and an assist. And I think for me, to be the best player in the league, in the world, you've got to be able to deliver when the opposition know what you are going to do week in, week out. And for me, Mo Salah does that to an extent, and Cole Palmer will do that. But for me, right now, he's not the best player in the league.
I would just like to say about, so basically what Kweku's saying is that he believes it, but he doesn't want to say it. And also, no, I think when you mention about Mo Salah, and I think overall you could look at it and go, Erling Haaland, Rodri, obviously injured now, Salah, overall are better players, more experienced, have done more in the game than Cole Palmer. However, the thing I like about Cole Palmer is that it's not a numbers game. Even though his numbers are out of this world, you're saying that Salah, against Chelsea scored a penalty. He got a very good assist in that game. And then against Arsenal, he got a goal as well. I've watched every Chelsea game this season, and I would say 9 times out of 10, Cole Palmer is the best player on the pitch without even getting a goal or an assist. And I think what sums it up perfectly is the goal against Newcastle in the league, our first goal. That goal doesn't happen without one of the best passes, I'm going to say I've ever seen, but it's just out of this world how good it is. But does he get a goal or an assist for it? No, because Neto got the assist and Jackson got the goal.
No, but
he doesn't need numbers.
His fingerprints are all over Chelsea's attacking. So it's the assist before the assist, right? That's what they say in the States.
Pre-assist.
The pre-assist. I think the problem that we've all got, and going back to what Kweku's just said, the problem we've got, it's happened so quickly. And we're talking about a player that's played less than 50 first-team games, right? Think about that. He scored 21 goals in his last 21 appearances in the Premier League at Chelsea, at Stamford Bridge, right? So the numbers are insane. He's stacking up serious numbers. He's also now, that's the goals he scored. He's also now the assist or the assist before the assist. He is Chelsea's most important player. He's Chelsea's best player. He is the most impressive player I've seen since Hazard. And because it's happened so quickly, he's only been at Stamford Bridge just over a season a bit, right? And it's hard for everyone to comprehend what he's doing. The reality is, he's outrageously good. He is outrageously good. He's the delight, you said there. It's one of those, that's why we watch football. We watch footballers, not to watch me play, defender, kick people in the air.
I love watching you play, James.
No, but we watch football to see. You talk about the beautiful game. He is the epitome of the beautiful game. His touches as well, the way he chops the ball back, his vision. That I was doing Chelsea TV that day, and in the gantry, I didn't see that pass.
It's only until you see the behind angle.
I didn't see that pass. He sees it at ground level. It's the way to pass, the selection of pass, the delivery. He's he's got all of the tools. And this kid, everyone said last season, might he be a one-season wonder? Well, already now people are going, no, he's now doing numbers better than last season. But he's still very young, and there's still a lot to come from this kid.
I mean, you summed it up perfectly there. I think when I think of Cole Palmer, like, I used to go to Stamford Bridge and get excited about watching Eden Hazard. Like, every week I would just watch him. And every week now I find myself going to Stamford Bridge and I cannot take my eyes off Cole Palmer.
He's an absolute delight.
With the whole Ballon d'Or thing that's just happened as well, I think it's Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or. For me, Rodri was the best player in the world last season. I think people can argue it. But in terms of, like, pure football, those are the sorts of players we want to see winning the Ballon d'Or. We want to see the likes of Cole Palmer. And by the way, there is no way that there's 24 better players than Cole Palmer last season.
But
Ademola Lookman he finished like 14th based off one game.
Liv, the
No,
problem
I'm not having it.
The problem is that people's. It's a little bit like the Caicedo noise. It's quietened.
Yeah.
Why? Because Chelsea were terrible. We were poor last year, right? And how can you have the best player in the world playing for Chelsea? It's impossible because we were we were poor, right? But now you're seeing Caicedo. No one mentions £100 million Caicedo.
No.
They might have Enzo, but not Caicedo. The problem he played for Chelsea and we weren't great.
Yeah, and
Can you just get on the hype, Kwkeu,
no,
please?
Liv, I am.
Jump on the Cole Palmer
I
train.
am on the hype train, but and again, I view Chelsea like within eras and. From like when I started supporting them, like 97 to like 2003, 2004. That was like our continental era. Vialli, we're bringing in players from all over the continent. We really finding our feet and winning domestic trophies and European trophies as well. From 04 to 2012, that was our dominance era.
Yeah.
Winning league titles, Champions League finals, winning Champions League, and then from 2012 up until when Hazard left in 2019, he carried us. Right? We weren't great, we weren't amazing. We went through different managers, but Hazard himself carried us to 2 league titles and other domestic trophies as well. Yeah. And I feel like between 2019 and now, we've kind of lost our identity. Despite the fact we did win the Champions League 3 years ago, that's our only major trophy we've won since Hazard's left. I feel like now with Cole Palmer, we've run into or discovered a gem that nobody expected. When we signed him last summer, nobody thought he was going to be the man that we're talking about next year. And he went and scored 22 league goals in his very first season as a starter in the Premier League. He didn't make his debut, a Chelsea debut, in terms of starting until October. And he still scored that many.
Time to get in the team, by the way.
Yeah.
It
did. It took him a while to break into the team. And as soon as he came into the team, he goes, no, I'm on penalties. I'm the talisman. And right now, he is that talisman. I'm just very, very cautious of piling all of that pressure onto him until... I know, Jay. I know.
Honestly,
I've been scarred.
Kwkeu is absolutely scarred.
I've been scarred.
It's so true. Just enjoy what we've got right now. You're right. But Liv's right. This boy is special. This kid is a special, special player.
This is in no way me comparing Caicedo to Kante, Jackson to Diego Costa and Palmer to Hazard, right? Because obviously when we won the league under Conte, those three, I say, Hazard did lead us, but Diego Costa scored a brilliant amount of goals and Kante was N'Golo Kante. But it does finally feel that we've got now like a strong, solid spine of players that we perhaps hadn't had in the past. The goalkeeper is an issue. We've spoken about that, and I think it's still an issue, and I think it will continue to be an issue. But you look at Colwill at the back, you look at Caicedo in the middle, you look at Jackson up top, and you've got that special player in Cole Palmer. Like, that, it's not a comparison. I'm not comparing them, but do you see my point? Do you see my point?
I really like that comparison. The 16-17 season under Conte, we didn't really expect much because the season before we finished 10th. And then all of a sudden it's like, Eden Hazard's found his form again.
That famous Marcus Alonso on the touchline.
It was incredible. It just came out of nowhere. Diego Costa found his shooting boots again. And then obviously N'Golo Kante's N'Golo Kante, and then Caicedo's kind of replicating that. So I do like the comparison. The league was very different back then, right? Pep Guardiola's first season in the Premier League wasn't really the same Man City team that we see right now. But in terms of those match winners, which I think those players are, in terms of, I know he's a midfielder, but Caicedo can win you matches by enforcing his will on a football match. Cole Palmer can get you that goal, get you that assist. And Nicolas Jackson, by the way, can get you a goal out of nowhere as well as providing those assists and dropping in deep and being that provider. So I like that comparison. I think we're going in the right direction. Let's just enjoy the ride. Let's just enjoy the match. Do you know what people say? Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it.
He's trying.
You know what kids say? Oh, yeah, they're cooking.
I know.
We're not cooking right now. We're marinating. We're marinating.
No one's overhyping who we are right now because we're still a very young side. But there's so much to look at. And let's be honest, we have come in for an absolute kicking in the last 2.5 years
Yeah.
is, right? Because of the transfer policy, we're bringing players in. Aubameyang came in. Huge money earners came in. And the transfer policy has changed. We're now starting to see the likes of Caicedo looking like that £100 million player. CUCURELLA. I mean, you know, no one talks about CUCURELLA anymore the way they used to. So there's a lot. There's still a long way to go, but right now... By the way, we've got the youngest ever team in the opening 9 Premier League games ever in the Premier League. So we're a young team, we're inexperienced. We will make mistakes.
I want to get on to Nicolas Jackson. I know we spoke about him last week, but every week that goes by, I get more and more impressed with him. So we'll talk about him in a second. But just finally, I think, you know, the recruitment, there's been question marks over. You know, Chelsea fans have had question marks. But I think largely that they do need, you know, we need to say, you know, they've got it right. And especially with Cole Palmer, that is one that no one saw coming, that everyone was like, 40 million for Cole Palmer. He's played about 3 games. But they've got that right. They saw something there. Are you surprised, Jace, that Pep didn't see something? Or do you think he did, but he wasn't going to step in his way and stop him from leaving?
I don't think that we can heap too much criticism on City, because the problem that they had, and we've had it ourselves with the likes of De Bruyne and Salah, is that at that particular moment in time, there wasn't a space for him. There is no way the Cole Palmer we're looking at now, we would have seen if he stayed at City.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been given the opportunities. And he wanted to go. Credit to him, by the way. That's a bold move, going from Manchester into London to go and play for a club like Chelsea. Bold move. And the boy clearly has handled everything that's come with that. I'm not sure we can beat City up too much. It's a moment in time. On reflection now, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I think they'll look and go,
uh-oh.
No one saw it. No one said, this boy is so special. Yeah. He is so special. And he will get better and better and better. The problem that we might have is that he's going to attract attention.
Sign him up. Sign him up for another...
He's got 9 years, right? 9 years. Get him out of that.
Yeah, just another 10.
But so he will now have aspirations, understandably and rightly so. He says, if you're one of the best players in the world, or one of the best players in Europe, you should be winning tournaments, you should be winning Champions League, Premier Leagues, whatever it might be. So we need to carry his expectations and his ability with us to win things.
Yeah, and like you said, it's credit to the recruitment team. And I feel like, as Chelsea fans, we did have an issue with how things were dealt. And I feel like it was more about the outgoings than it was about the incomings.
Yeah.
It was more about how it was handled. And as football fans, we're sentimental, right? And when you've got Mason Mount who got the assist in the Champions League final, and he's a Chelsea boy, and we kind of let him go, and it was unceremonious to an extent. Conor Gallagher, who kind of messed around a little bit, it didn't feel great. But we do have to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
This recruitment team have got it spot on with a lot of these signings, and even the signings they didn't make, the signings they wanted, Omorodjian at Porto. You look at John Duran, who we also wanted. They know what they are doing. They
got their fingers on the pulse.
They know what they're doing.
You can't get everyone right.
Yeah.
You're going to make... Not every signing's going to work.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, the recruitment so far, I'm with you, no one's criticising Chelsea anymore. No. Why? Because we're doing all right.
Which also means that one of the players that a lot of people were criticising last season, and I don't know why, because I think his numbers were good, I think it was the chances he missed, but this link-up between Cole Palmer and Nicolas Jackson, Kwkeu, it's giving Son and Kane, it's giving Lampard Drogba, like the disallowed goal, I think just summed up where they are at mentally with each other so perfectly that when Jackson drops deep and gets the ball, the brilliant turn on the halfway line, and he knew exactly where Cole Palmer was going to be, and his top of his knee was offside, but that is where their link-up is so good.
Yeah, well, you can accuse me of under-hyping Cole Palmer, and I do that because he's getting enough hype already.
Yeah.
I'm going to over-hype Nicolas Jackson because he's not getting enough credit for what he does. The goal against Newcastle, granted, the ball from Cole Palmer is incredible. Pedro Neto does well to get a pass from the defender. But the finish from Nicolas Jackson was so assured. Last season, he might take a touch. Last season, he might miss that. This season, bang, straight in. He deserves so much credit because I feel like, similar to the Caicedo thing, when you don't make a great start at your club, you get tarnished with a brush of you're not good enough. But if you're watching Nicolas Jackson week in, week out, you're looking at one of the best strikers in the Premier League. And I think he deserves that credit because he's playing at that level. Not just the goals, but the way he brings his teammates into play. This allowed Cole Palmer goal. The ball was brilliant. He did it. He's done it in multiple games this season. And when I'm looking at him as a footballer right now, I'm seeing somebody who's developing. Somebody who was a left winger, is now playing down the middle, has got the confidence of his manager and his teammates. And yeah, right now, in terms of best strikers in the Premier League, we're going top 5, maybe even top 3.
I would back you up and probably say, I think top 2, I think Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins. I think that third spot is up for grabs. I mean, you mentioned Isak, which I think is I love Alexander Isak. I love watching him play. But I think there's a case there that Nicolas Jackson, given if we're thinking about how long he's been a centre forward, how long he's spent at Chelsea, everything that's gone on last season, and I think we can make a case that Jackson is top 3 strikers in the Premier League.
OK, so here's another thing that needs to be mentioned. When he signed for Chelsea, he'd only played 1 season of top-flight football. So we're talking about a player that's still very much learning his trade. He's young, he's raw, there is more to come. There are still very much rough edges. His hold-up play has developed. There was a goal that we scored against Luton last season that Palmer scored where he dinks his way through. Oh. The pass from Jackson. So that link-up is there, it's been there, and we'll see more of it. Cole Palmer played slightly on the left against Newcastle. He tends to operate more on the right, but he played on that left-hand side where the goal comes from Neto. But that run from deep, the link-up play where Jackson knows he's on his way, that will only get better. That link-up and that move. Unbelievably, in the 90 minutes, Palmer didn't find Jackson once. Which, if someone had told me, if you'd sat there, Liv, and said to me, I'd have called you a liar, right? I would have done, because it's inconceivable to think that they didn't link up. But the fact we're still having this conversation is that linking up, we all automatically think about passes, but you can actually occupy space when someone drops and someone goes in. That is telepathy that doesn't come quickly. You've got to work at it. Frank Lampard and Drogba had that. But it's developing. There's still more to come from Jackson. Jackson, I think, there is so much more in terms of his hold-up play. He had Dan Burn and Cher on toast at the weekend. His hold-up play, the movement. There's still more to come. You're right about his finishing, by the way, because that finish was a nice, solid, good, solid contact, clinical, but comfortable in what you're doing in a one-touch finish.
And I think that's the difference. You know, you look at this. I suppose we spoke about the A team and the B team, but the NKUNKU, JOAO, FELIX, and both of them want to come and occupy the same space. Like, Jackson knows that that's Cole Palmer's space, but Cole Palmer knows that if Jackson wants to go into his space, he goes into Jackson's space, and that's where they work so perfectly. And
the game slows down as well when you become more comfortable in your environment. I remember when Liverpool signed Luis Suarez, and he was great, right, when they signed him from Ajax, but he wasn't an elite finisher. I remember seeing him miss a lot of chances, and then after a season and a half, the game started to slow down and he became an elite finisher. I'm not saying that Nicolas Jackson's going to get to that 13, 14 Luis Suarez level where he was one of the best players we have ever seen in the Premier League, but the game does slow down the more you become comfortable with it. And I do think that with Nicolas Jackson, with how he's developing, with the players around him, with the confidence of his manager, he's only going to get better. Bear in mind, his statistics are without penalties. Cole Palmer's never coming off penalties.
No, never.
Nicolas Jackson scored 14 goals without pens. And that's good going in the Premier League. Give him pens, he probably gets to 20. And so I'm seeing a player that is developing at a rapid level and is only going to reach the highest of the heights. And when you talk about hyping players, I will hype Nicolas Jackson because I've seen the truth. Will
you hype him as much as Kalidou Koulibaly has hyped him, though? Because in an interview, I think with Ben Jacobs, who was on the show last week, he has said that Nicolas Jackson will one day win the Ballon d'Or.
Right. Yeah, let's slow down a little bit, right?
Take it easy.
We can say Cole Palmer can one day. I would put money on Cole Palmer one day winning the Ballon d'Or. Nicolas Jackson, I'm not so sure about.
The thing about Nicolas Jackson is he does things that you think when he receives the ball, he's still very rough. There's a lot of edges to him that I think he can smooth, which we've seen already in his time. He's been at Stamford Bridge. I don't know. You can't be doing that.
I've actually made Jason lost for words, by the way. He's like, I don't know.
That's not fair. Yeah. It's not fair.
It's
not fair on Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
Because right now, Cole Palmer's Chelsea's best player. The plaudits are great, and we're all watching a young player still develop into what is probably an area that Chelsea over the years have really failed. You think about under the Roman, right? How many genuine number 9s do we have? Drogba, Crespo, Costa. I mean, Torres, but name them, right? And look how many we signed in that time. It's a tough position. It's a really tough position. But I remember when Darwin Núñez signed for Liverpool, and everyone's hyping him. You look at the journey the pair of them had. They've been at both clubs for exactly the same amount of time. No one talks about Darwin Núñez now. No one.
What I will say is, the Ballon d'Or thing is absolutely ridiculous because it's circumstantial. Like, over the last 15, 16 years, there's only been 5, 6 players won Ballon d'Or. Kwkeu, who's one of the greatest players of all time. Ronaldo, who's Ronaldo. Messi, Benzema, Modric, and now Rodri. These are players that are all-time legends. To say that you think that Nicolas Jackson, after a quick run season...
Sorry, the more I say it...
I don't mean to laugh at it, but, like, it's circumstantial.
Slow down, gang.
I didn't say it. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from me.
I know.
It's just a bit ridiculous. I'm not saying that he shouldn't strive for that. I'm not saying that he should be ambitious. But we saw Vinicius Jr. have an incredible season last year and scored a winning goal in the Champions League final, didn't win it. We saw Erling Haaland break the Premier League goal-scoring record, win the treble, including the Champions League, and he didn't win it. So it's difficult to say right now Nicolas Jackson's going to win it. He's a great striker, but slow your roll.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, OK, sorry. It wasn't me that said it. It was Kalidou Koulibaly, just to say. Right, we said about this, you know, the loss in midweek against Newcastle in the League Cup. You said it earlier, Jay, so I think, Kwkeu, you said it. Everything will be forgotten if, and it's a massive if, we beat Manchester United, not because of where they are in the league, not because of their situation. We haven't beaten Manchester United at Old Trafford in the Premier League, or I think just in general, since over 10 years. That record just blows my mind, given that I think over the last 10 years, both teams have had their ups and downs, but to not have won there, Kwkeu, for 10 years blows my mind.
It just doesn't really make sense. One of those anomalies. And we were talking about it before the show started, about how we were so good against Manchester United back in the day. We always used to get results against them in important games. But yeah, the last 10 years has been very, very difficult and tough sledding against Man United. Did get a draw there last season. Cole Palmer scored. And over those 2 games against Manchester United, Cole Palmer scored 4 goals, including the memorable hat-trick at Stamford Bridge. And so I expect him to turn up against a team that he apparently grew up supporting. And so I'm not worried about that. What we do have to concern ourselves with a little bit is new manager bounce, because that's a real thing. It is a real thing. And if it's Manchester United under Erik ten Hag, I'll book it right now. I'll say we're winning against Man United. Manchester United under maybe a Ruud van Nistelrooy or a Ruben Amorim, depends on how quickly they get the deal done. I think it's a slightly different complexion on the game. I do expect us to go there and win, but Old Trafford's not been a happy hunting ground for Chelsea for the last 10 years.
Reports like today, at the time of recording, are suggesting that Ruben Amorim, like, it's all done, but he's not going to take charge until the next international break because of obviously his contract with Sporting. So is it, Jason, a new manager bounce? I know obviously they got a big win in the League Cup against Leicester, but when I looked at that Leicester side, I was like, well, they're playing their kids. They're not taking that seriously. So is there an element of a new manager bounce, even though they won't have a new manager?
I think what people talk about a new manager bounce. I think there's also the old manager going bounce, because but people forget that someone. So if most of the team, and I've watched Manchester United play, as we all have, right? They're not a happy team. The fact that he has gone, I think, elevates everyone around the ground. Personally, I think it. So I'm not so convinced that Ruud van Nistelrooy is the next coming because of what happened against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. But I think the fact that he has gone, I think, frees them up a little bit, because they were a terrible side to watch. There were games I saw in the last 18 months under Ten Hag where they were terrible. They stunk every stadium out. Terrible. Yet they've got good players. And I think we've got to remember that. They still have good players that are underperforming. This is not going to be... It wasn't going to be easy under Ten Hag. It has made it harder, no question in my mind, because he's gone and the players now want to impress the new manager. It's going to be a tough game. But I'm taking us. Our away form this season is good. I know we got beat away at Liverpool, could have taken something. First half against Wolves, less so, but second half, West Ham. You look at the away games we travel well because of the way that we play, and there's a freedom about the way we play. I'll be interested to see exactly how they line up. What do they do? I mean, there's players like Rashford, right? Who plays in the midfield? What do they do with that? There's a lot, whether it's Ruud or whether it's going to be Amorim, what they do. As far as I'm concerned, if we turn up and we bring our A game, and we got Reece playing, we got Caicedo playing, we got Jackson playing, we got Palmer playing, and our best team turns up and plays on the day, we won't lose. We will not lose.
I mean, I know everything Jason's just said. Like, when you look at those two teams, even with this new manager bounce or whatever bounce this is, we have, like, there's almost no excuse on my part. There's no excuse to not beat them, given the way we're playing, our form, especially in the league, especially our away form, that this has to be the game. And I actually believe if we don't beat them at Old Trafford this Sunday, we never will again.
Yeah.
Liv, I love that. Never will again.
Never will again. It's so
annoying. It's actually...
Yeah, I know.
But it's so frustrating because there's been so many games. There's been so many games where we've played them at Old Trafford and I thought, yes, coming into this, we're going to beat them.
But a point at Old Trafford's never a bad point.
I don't want a point at Old Trafford. I'm not taking a point at Old Trafford.
Right now.
No.
Look, right now, who's the better team? The league will tell you that. But you've got to accept that Manchester, that stadium will be rocking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Ten Hag has gone. Yeah. Most fans that I speak to on talkSPORT, most Man United fans, are happy he's gone. Yeah. The players will be happy. There will be...
something.
There'll be that off their shoulders, no question.
It sounds trivial as well, and I get made fun of for bringing this up as a point. But where the clocks have changed, right? And it's 4:30 on a Sunday. It's under the lights at Old Trafford. It's a different complex.
I like what you're doing here. I like this, Kwkeu.
It's under the lights.
And you got the yellow ball as well, right?
Yeah, the yellow ball. It's something
nice.
It's something a bit different. And you're right. We have to contend with that. Old Trafford. Say it's in March or April and it's sunny and it's 4:30 and they're playing terrible football. I expect us to go there and roll them over. But under the lights, it is going to be rocking. So the players, for the first time, will have to maybe temper that and just calm the game down because we know how electric we are when we go forward. But I have no doubt about it. If we're on our A game and they're on their A game, we should beat them. I don't see a path to victory for them. And where I see their major flaws being is in midfield. Midfield, because I think it's probably going to be Ugarte and Casemiro because Menu's out. Lavia and Caicedo, I think, outmanned them, and they should be able to deal with them. And then going forward, I'm not worried about us scoring goals. We will always score goals with our starting front players. But defensively is where our issues are. And we seem to always give away a silly goal. And that's where our problems lie. If we can just eliminate that and go to Old Trafford and do our jobs and concentrate under the lights at Old Trafford, there's no reason why we should get 3 points.
On Sunday, the atmosphere, it'll be crackling.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I can't wait as well. I can't go, which is very annoying. But we never win in Manchester, so maybe Sunday is the day. Obviously, with Ruben Amorim coming in, he was a manager that's been linked to the Premier League before. Do you think there's only 6 points between Chelsea and Manchester United in the league? So it's not much in the grand scheme of things with however many games there was left. Exactly. Are they a top 4 threat then? When you look at those, you've got your Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, us, are probably the 4 teams that are looking around that 4th spot. Are Man United the 5th?
I don't think so, but the reality is there's only 9 games in. And there's so many more points to be grabbed. We've seen what happened when a manager can come in, Thomas Tuchel, when he took over, won the Champions League, got to an FA Cup final. The things can change. Yeah. I think, talking about United, I think what Amorim's going to do, he plays a 3 at the back. He's quite rigid in the way that he plays. How does he square that? Who plays on the wing-backs? That's what he's got to sort out. But I don't think we can write them off for top 4, but if, the odds will tell you they're probably... Because there's too much traffic. There's too many good teams. Spurs, Villa, us, Brighton. Right now, they're not better than those 4. So you have to say Europa League probably is the best chance right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. And because in the Premier League, remember back in the day, it was a big 4. Right now, there's a set big 3. And Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool occupy those spaces. So you've got about 4 or 5 teams battling out for one spot. And we'll see how the coefficient works, whether 5th gets you into the Champions League. But we're all fighting for that top 4. I think for Manchester United, in terms of their poor start to the season, it'll be a bit too much. And they'll look at the Europa League, look at the teams in their group, and they'll feel like they should win it. It's either them or Spurs, really, in terms of the strongest teams in that competition. But what Amorim will do is he'll change the outlook. And a lot of these players that we look at and say, oh, they're poor, all of a sudden, in a different view, be like, oh, they're actually decent. Thomas Tuchel, like you mentioned, did that with Chelsea when Havertz wasn't really firing, Timo Werner wasn't firing. And then all of a sudden, under Thomas Tuchel, they look like good players because new managers come in with a new perspective. So got to be wary of that, but hopefully not for the weekend because I don't think he'll be in the dugout. And we don't need to worry about Manchester United. We're better than them, we'll get the win. Guaranteed.
And hopefully, by the end of the weekend, the gap between us and Manchester United will be 9 points.
That'd be lovely.
It's just worth saying as well that Arsenal are only 1 point ahead of us. Anyway, that's it from this week's Inside Chelsea. Thank you very much for your company. And of course, thank you to Jason and Kwkeu, who have been amazing. As always, we will see you next time. Up the Chelsea.